Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the final panel discussion for the day. This one will focus on social media marketing. We have a great series of speakers here with us today. I'd like to pass the mic around and have each one of them introduce themselves.
Me first?
Sure.
So I'm Sean Copeland from Abacus Data. I'm the Director of Consumer Research there. Probably, from what I can tell, I don't see any other researchers here. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we can talk to each other later. But I'll pass the mic on to the panelists, and then I'll give a brief introduction to what they're talking about too.
Hey, my name's Troy Boileau. I work with Powered by Search. I guess I'm a SEO guy over there. Right now I'm just moderating, so hopefully I'll ask some pretty interesting questions. And we're trying to get you guys to participate and wake up, because I know it's late and everyone's blood sugar drops apparently, and everyone should do jumping jacks. But I'll pass the mic on.
Good afternoon, Paul Crowe. I'm a partner and strategy lead at BNOTIONS. We're a mobile and data innovation firm. And we're also a Facebook preferred marketing developer, one of a handful in Canada, and work closely with them on all of our different deployments and projects. So looking forward to the topic.
Hi there, I'm Yousuf Afridi, account manager at Taxi2. I've been there for about 2 years now, and I'll be sharing whatever experience I have from in the field, and I look forward to listening to whatever questions you have and chatting with everyone here on the panel.
My name is Alyssa, and about 3 years ago, I founded a website called RateHub.ca. It's a mortgage rate comparison website in Canada, so it aggregates mortgage rates, and we sell leads to mortgage brokers. In about 3 years, we've built it up to 250 to 300,000 visits a month, and we've got a team of 10 people.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hamza Khan. I am the co-founder and responsible for digital strategy over at Splash Effect. We're a digital marketing firm serving clients in the higher education space.
So just before we get into the panel discussion, we're going to have Sean Copeland from Abacus Data, who's one of our sponsors, give a 5 minutes introduction to the topic from some of the experiences that he's had.
Okay. So being a market researcher, you probably expect me to have a bunch of slides with graphs, pie charts. Yes? No. Something that I actually made a point of doing, and I think this was New Year's 2 years ago, I actually said to myself, I will never, ever put another chart in a presentation that I give. And people looked at me like, you're an idiot, you're in market research, you need to have charts, you need to show data. Well, data just tells a story, and so I chose to tell the story rather than just show the data. Are there any other market researchers in the room, by the way? Does anyone not know what market research is? No, I'm not going to ask for hands because I don't want you to look stupid in front of your peers. No, I'm just kidding. Market research, so what I do and what Abacus does, we have a focus on millennials as well as public affairs, political polling. You might see our CEO talk on Sun News a lot. He's in the Globe and Mail, National Post. And where we try to focus is helping companies understand their audience so that they can then go to you guys and say, here's our audience, let's do some marketing, let's do some social media marketing, let's design a new website. So we help them understand their audience. What I'm going to bring up, the Boston Consulting Group, which isn't anywhere on this slide. There's probably some guys that look like that. But the Boston Consulting Group recently produced a book that basically said you need, as an organization, to foster doubt. And it's kind of a negative way of saying always question what you're doing, always question what you're producing, always question if what you're measuring actually makes sense. So what I'm basically going to be saying today is, before these guys talk about social media marketing and generating leads and nurturing leads, I'm going to say, think about what you're doing. When you go back to your business, whatever it is, whether it's just you and another guy, whether it's you and 500 other people, be that person that goes back and says, are we doing this the best way that we can? Does this make sense in the long term? And I think Dev said it earlier. Are you nurturing your customers in a way that makes them love you? Or are you just taking their money? So I guess my question is, you say you know your audience, but do you? You see what they like on your website based on clicks, based on maybe even following them for 30 days and seeing what types of products they buy. But when's the last time you went out and said, hey, Joe, what do you like? When's the last time that you actually sat in a room with one of them and said, what content do you like the most that we produce? Why do you like it? What do you like that maybe we haven't produced? A great example, actually, and I think it'll come up on this panel, is producing content that visitors are looking for so you can sell a product. And I think that'll probably come up a little bit. I love this quote, and I like to use a lot of quotes, but content first, social media marketing second. This is a quote from Will Rogers, for those of you that don't know who he is. He's probably the first person that actually thought of the idea of inbound marketing, based on what I can find anyways. But I don't think he knew at the time, because the internet wasn't really around. And word of mouth was probably not even really a keyed term at the time. Ogilvy probably hadn't even thought of it. No, maybe it is, okay. But if advertisers spent the same amount of money on improving their products as they do on advertising, then they wouldn't have to advertise them. And that's basically what I'm going to say about the content that you produce. If you understand your audience and you produce great content, you shouldn't really have to try that hard to get them to visit and read your content. So get to know your audience, do some research. Actually bring them into the room. And when I say bring them into the room, that can be online. It can be a survey if you want. If all it is a quick little survey monkey survey and you feel like that's the best you can do or it's going to answer your question, perfect. If you need to bring them into a room physically and have a focus group, do that. And I think a lot of the user experience designers or researchers do a lot of that. You can do it online too. There's great software out there where you can bring them in to an online focus group, online discussion, bulletin boards. Say you can't afford any of that. Go through your social media, see what people actually responded to, what conversations sparked interest. You know, I visit so many Facebook pages, especially big retailers. They have 6 million likes, you know, or McDonald's has 21 million likes. And I think, oh, that's fantastic. Like, look how many people like their brand. But then when you look at what they're talking about, they could say, hey, you know, we love Big Macs. And no one responds. And then all of a sudden they'll say something about the Egg McMuffin. This was a famous one from a couple months ago. They said, congratulations, Egg McMuffin, you've been around for 30 years or something like that. And it was all negative responses. People were saying like, oh, it's been around for 30 years. Yeah, it's probably the same ones from 30 years ago. So that's a case where, yes, it did engage customers in a conversation. But what I'm trying to get to is, don't leave your social media as a desert where you're attracting people but not actually engaging them and getting to know them, because it's an opportunity where you don't have to spend money because you've already got people sitting there waiting for you to engage them and ask them questions. They want to talk about your brand. They want you to say, what do you like? What can we give you? They really want you to talk about that. So after you've gone and really learned about your customers, that's when it's time to go out and write a unique story. And you've probably seen this in the past, any sort of copywriters out there, that gets attention, interest, desire, and action. I love HubSpot. I don't know, is there anyone out here that works for HubSpot? Perfect. They have been sending me emails probably for 6 years. Have I bought any of their products? No, but they write really great material. Really great material. So I'm going to use one of the, just a little quote from HubSpot, because I think what they write is fantastic. By aligning the content you publish with your customers' interests, you naturally attract inbound traffic that you can then convert, close, and delight over time. It's basically going back to this guy again. It's the same concept, just written for our time. I'm going to end this because I don't want to keep rambling on. We can chat later. You know, I'm a very philosophical guy. I never really get to the point. Just remember, and this is from Lee. He basically built and created GM, and he's quite a famous old guy. You can have brilliant ideas, but if you cannot get them across, your ideas will not get you anywhere. So that's what I'm going to end on. And if you want to check out, I started a blog for Abacus Data a few months ago. We blog 3 or 4 times a week. Check it out. Let me know what you think about it. We're all going to be going out for a drink later, hopefully, maybe. I've been taking tally so far. There's been 6 mentions of beer today from the presenters, so I think that's pretty decent ratio. It might go up again with this panel looking at these guys, probably. So yeah, let me know what you think about our blog. You're experts. I would love to hear, without having to pay you, what you think of my blog, so let me know.
Thanks, Sean. I feel kind of awkward sitting down with the microphone. It's a little bit weird. Okay, cool. So we're going to start the panel discussion. You good? Okay, so we're going to start the panel discussion. I actually had a chance to talk with some of the panelists before we went over this, and we had probably the best parts of this conversation not in front of you. So that's really unfortunate for you guys. But basically what it means is that you're going to have to come out to the bar afterwards and buy us all beer. See what I did there? It's amazing. Anyway, also, if you want to talk afterwards, you want to talk outside of this convention, because I know your minds are reeling from all the stuff that you've heard. Feel free to come and talk to us. I know this is probably true for everyone here. We'd appreciate, if you come up, ask your questions, give us your business cards, ask for ours, and we'll continue the conversation after. So I just wanted to open with that. The first question I wanted to ask was a question that Alyssa Richard was hoping that we would cover. So let's start with that. How do you define success in social media? And this is an important question, especially when you're comparing different verticals. If you're comparing B2B, B2C, people are saying, well, I can't do it because of this or because of that, but maybe that's not even your definition of success, or it shouldn't be based on an expert opinion. So I'm going to pass it on to Alyssa, and if anyone else has anything to say, you can just steal the mic before it gets back to me.
Okay, awesome. So one of the things, I actually went into Google Analytics this morning, and I was really curious. I wanted to look at over time how much traffic and how much revenue has come to RateHub through Twitter and Facebook. So I actually wanted to open up to you guys, and I wanted you to guess. So from Facebook, how much do you think, what % of our revenue has come through Facebook? What do you guys think?
Less than 5.
Less than 5, 10? Less than 1. Yeah, so less than 1% of our revenue has come from Facebook, and less than 1% of our revenue has come from Twitter. Because so many people go to Google, they search for mortgage rates, 71% of our revenue comes from Google through paid and organic. But Facebook and Twitter is something we still focus on. And so I took a step back and asked, why do we still think it's important, and what are we getting? So for us, it's an amazing tool to build relationships at RateHub. And this has come to fruition in a couple of ways. Probably first and foremost, it has introduced us to incredible journalists in our field. So one of the most notable, that's how we connected with the Globe reporter who focused on real estate. And he's featured us in a number of articles. And so that actually helps us with SEO. And so that is, an indirect benefit. Another big way with hiring. So I think it allows candidates, especially we want people who are passionate about social, they're passionate about SEO. It's a way for them to get a glimpse into our company and see and learn more about our culture. And we also have found a lot of amazing candidates through Twitter. Our editor, she runs a blog, a personal finance blog, Blonde on a Budget. We connected with her through Twitter. That was another great win for the company. Facebook we use as a way to showcase our culture to other people, and then also for our internal culture. If we're doing something awesome, if we're at an offsite, if we've just created an amazing infographic, it's really nice for us to almost use as an internal newsletter to share with our developers and everyone in our organization. And then I think the final way that we see success is by connecting with sources and big players in our industry. So it's allowed us to connect with influential real estate lawyers and mortgage brokers who we often feature in articles. We can call them for advice. We can, call them to find out what's new and changing quickly in the industry. So yeah, I don't know if we want to go through each of us and just quickly talk about, what social media means for our companies.
Yeah, actually, I really want to hear, Paul, what your thoughts are. Last time, Paul Crowe gave me kind of a rundown of social media. He was giving a presentation about G.I. Joe, and I think that was specifically related to using social media to drive revenues. So maybe talk a little bit about how you and your clients use or define success.
Yeah, I think I never look at it as social media marketing or a social product or anything. I think Alyssa said it best. Like, social media is a tool you can apply. So I'll just give a rundown of ways that the social media is driving some of the projects we're doing for our clients forward. A great example is we've got a team of data scientists at BNOTIONS that are working on a number of our different applications. And so one thing we do is, obviously, if you're looking at a mobile application, be it like the Score mobile or to like a Globe and Mail or any one of those apps, quite often they'll have an option to sign in with Facebook, sign in with Twitter, sign in with LinkedIn. Well, when you get that sign in, you get access to data. And so what we're doing in a number of our applications is using that social media data to actually profile what this user looks like and then model them against current users. So if you're logging into a news app for the first time, and we can look at your data and recognize that you look like a cluster, a segment of 1,200 other users, we can actually look at the last 30 articles that those people have read and all of a sudden populate the homepage with those 30 articles. So now you have a higher chance of clicking into articles, and the stickiness, retention can drive, churn can be reduced, and ultimately monetization can be stronger. Or if you start to move through articles and you bounce halfway through an article, we now know that maybe you're not interested in anything about the city of Hamilton, or we can understand through natural language processing what that article was about and start to recommend other articles and let that kind of algorithm improve. And the way that we have an opportunity to build those machine learning algorithms is because we start with the modeling of social media data. You know, another example is social design, and that's what I was talking about when we were looking at, I was saying how much I disliked the website and promotional kind of marketing campaign for the G.I. Joe movie that's coming out, and how they just failed in all these opportunities to use social design to drive earned media and ultimately build up their own media channels and reduce their reliance on paid media to get people to pay attention to a movie. And so one of our clients' applications, we took a heavy social design approach into it, and we actually used, at the time, Facebook had just launched Open Graph Actions, the custom Open Graph Actions. So we built that into the tool, and we actually put the tracking in place to understand what the custom Open Graph Actions being driven out of this application were doing for the business. And for every single user who comes into this application as a paid user, one of them, they are attracting one user on average at no cost through Facebook or Twitter because of when you publish out these custom Open Graph Actions, we publish it to Facebook, but then give them an option to publish the exact same action to Twitter. So what that does is it takes the activities they're doing inside and we identify, okay, they enjoyed something, do you want to share this with others? And we make it real easy because you don't have to type in I thought this article was great. It's already there and it's written, and that's what the custom Open Graph Action is. It's kind of like filling in a Mad Lib with your own brand and your app name and the content. So there's a case where we've actually reduced their cost per user acquisition by 50% because every user who comes into the app is bringing another one with them. BNOTIONS as a company, we use social media the exact same way that Alyssa's talked about. I mean, in our world, we're competing with Amazon and Facebook and Google for engineers. We're competing with big data companies for data scientists, ad agencies for designers and information architects. So, we're a company of 65, but I think we're at 32 or 3,300 followers on Facebook right now. And what that enables us to do is share videos of the culture of our company. And so it's facebook.com/BNOTIONS. And this week, actually on Thursday, we're going to be posting a pretty cool video. People might have seen Elon Musk. He launched the video of where he actually built the Iron Man interface where he's using Leap Motion and Oculus Rift goggles to maneuver and work with 3D objects in real time by hand motions. Well, we have Leap Motion Oculus Rift in our office, and we weren't that impressed with what he did, so we're one-upping him and launching that on Wednesday. But, that's how we can attract engineers. to the company, and the same way, actually, a lot of the things we've shared, you get our marketing magazine, strategy magazine, both the reporters that first reached out to us came across a story on our Facebook page and said, hey, we would love to talk to you about this. So, you know, we use it every day to help our clients achieve their objectives, but internally, like, our main focus is just brand recognition, awareness, and making sure we never have to pay a recruiter that disgusting 15 or 20% they take.
Those are really good examples. So on my side of the fence where I work at an ad agency, so I've been here for now 2 years at Taxi specifically. We have mixed objectives when it comes to defining success in social media. Sometimes those success measures are actually delivered to us by our clients, marketers. So for example, with my experience, the two brands I work on are Capital One Canada, financial institution, and Kudo Mobile, national telecom provider. Both of them have very different objectives, and both of them use social media very differently. And both of them consider success to be completely different things altogether. One is focused on improving brand awareness and trying to tie into, define its Canadian identity, being an American company. And the other is focused on continuing to celebrate telecom in a very positive way, being the most favorite telecom brand in Canada, which is a very tough thing to do considering everyone hates telco. And so what they do is they try to harness that, and they do that in a very creative way using social media. So a success story or a success measure in that regard is, how can we use social media to reduce operational costs? Rather than just simply talking about the brand, that happens organically. And we have measures for brand awareness and things like that. But how can we reduce operational costs by having an engaged community that can answer questions that would normally be called into our call center? And so that's where they spend that time focusing. So again, for us, it's hard to say there's one measure of success for each kind of client. We actually have to define our success with them and for whatever their objectives are. So it's not one size fits all, unfortunately.
Right on, thank you. And in my world, social media success is defined as contributing to the attraction and the retention of students to various institutions. Now, I guess just by a show of hands, how many people over here in the audience physically visited their campus before they did their undergrad or their graduate programs? Not a lot of you, actually. I'm actually quite surprised, which is fascinating for me as a marketer in this space, because you're making a huge investment in terms of time and money, 4 years and in some cases $50,000+ to be at a place that you haven't physically visited before you made the decision to actually go there. And so what we do through Splash Effect and with our various clients is we try and amplify the positive stories that are happening within an institution, and at the same time foster a sense of community. As Alyssa said, build relationships between students and the organization, between students and opportunities and events, because we know through industry research that a student that feels connected to their institution, to each other, they're 30% more likely to complete their undergraduate program. So working with these stats and just fostering a sense of community on campus and amplifying positive stories, and at the end of the day, we see an institution have a high ratio of students to seats, and ensuring that students actually graduate. That's how we define social success, rather.
I like having one microphone. It's really cool. Okay, so the next question, it's kind of an interesting idea of having an always-on social media campaign versus having a campaign-driven social media campaign. And I don't really want to strictly define it, just because I think even your definition of it would be very interesting. And I want to start with Paul and then move on to Alyssa, just based on our conversations, and anyone else can steal the mic.
Sure. So BNOTIONS is a little bit different of a story than a lot of people may be in. I mean, one of our core values is we believe in building products that deliver value in the long term, not campaigns that disappear as quickly as their effectiveness or impact. So we don't actually do anything that's campaign focused. But what's interesting is we build products that create campaigns. And I'll explain what I mean there. So if you have a retail store or mobile application, it doesn't matter. But if you all of a sudden you could understand a very easy way to attract more high value customers or users, you'd probably want to take advantage of that. But that doesn't mean that those people, you can only attract them during like your Q2 fall campaign. It might not even be the right time to speak to them. So like some of the things that we do from an always on standpoint that can actually turn into like a campaign focus is, if we're looking at a mobile commerce application and we're constantly tracking different funnels and segments. So we might have 300,000 users, but there might only be 12,000 of those users who've only spent over $150 a month in the application. Well, if those people are essentially our outliers or kind of our pig in the python, then how do we find more people like that? And so what we'll start to do is actually track the usage of different segments and funnels, and as soon as it gets to a large enough group that we think there's a sample size there, for us to go out and identify, and what we do is we'll create like a model or a lookalike audience, and Facebook has made this really easy for us now. But so we're looking at behavioral data, people who have spent more money than anyone else. Then we figure out from that behavioral data, as well as any other information we have, what they are as from a psychographic standpoint and demographic standpoint. So now we can go out to media channels, media networks, as well as inform the creative to go out and speak to, exactly what these people are, because $150 might be the thing that makes them special, but what did they buy? Do all of them over-index in children's books? If that's the case, then we want to go out and find people who look like these people, and the creative might be driven by children's books. We might want to do an offer in that area. And utilizing these sort of segments, they'll only turn on when there's enough data there. And we build them in a dynamic way that we're plugged into APIs of different ad networks. So no one has to say, just like you don't get an email when someone types in your competitor's name into Google and it says, would you like to spend 50 cents to display an ad to this person? It happens automatically. Companies go and say, we have a $5,000 a month search engine spend. So clients will preload money into the system, and when we have the data, we have the information, we just turn on the campaigns, and they'll start to run, and we'll start to track, are we increasing or decreasing the cost per acquisition? Are we increasing the value of the users? So, that's kind of one way. Then the next way is, which it's an always on as well, but we take more of like a campaign briefing and approach that an ad agency might, is as we start to look at data of different products, be it a web product or mobile product, we're looking at retention and engagement. So if there's someone who used the application quite often or visited the website regularly, and they haven't come back in a while, then we start to look at what are the channels and what are the messages that we can connect with this person to bring them back in, to reignite them as a daily active or weekly or monthly active user. And so, there is the acquisition approach, but then there's also engagement and retention campaigns that will get launched and budgets put against them. And ultimately, we, improve those campaigns over time, and they feed data back in to make sure our next acquisition or the segmented approach that we take is getting better. So ultimately, the monetization aspect of whatever the business or product is getting better. So kind of that's how we approach social. Is we see social as a channel to find people who are like our best customers. And whether that's always on or whether that is on a quarterly basis, it doesn't really matter to us because we'll just do it at the right time for the right cost.
Great. Okay. So at RateHub, we do a mix. We have some always-on activities that we're doing on a regular basis, and that, as you can probably guess, are things like sharing really relevant, really great mortgage content. When people follow us for the first time, reaching out to them, sending them a little note, finding out more about them, responding to any customers that might reach out and have comments about one of our calculators that's broken in IE8, heaven forbid. And then we also do have some targeted campaigns where we normally throw some budget against them and then really try to ramp up our customer acquisition. And I think in the beginning, our campaigns were pretty naive in a sense. We thought less about what the community wanted and just more about, let's give away a coffee machine and send them out to the contest aggregators and try to get those, Twitter followers up. Some of the more of the vanity metrics, thinking less about, are these the right type of Twitter followers? Now we try to think more about what is the type of content that our community would really connect with. And so one of the campaigns we're doing right now that has actually been working incredibly well is we've connected with a bunch of major personal finance bloggers in Canada. We got a really nice picture of them and then asked them to give one quote. And so each week we've been launching, their picture. They're normally a prominent player, a lot of, Globe and Mail columnists. And then this has been really great because these people have, big Twitter followers. They're big players in our community. It gave us a touch point. We've got to work with them. We're giving them a great piece of content that they can share with their community, and our community's been loving it. So, we see a ton of likes. We see a ton of retweets and people just naturally commenting and engaging with the content. And sometimes, I visit our competitor's site and they're still doing the $100 giveaway and no one's liking the content. So this was something that was, it cost us time and resources, but it was free. There was no prize associated with it, but it's been amazing because we were able to connect what our community wanted and the content we were giving. It was awesome to see the type of engagement.
Anyone else want to ask?
So in our world, higher education marketing cycles have been just that. They've been usually cyclical, in that marketers recognize that there's different phases in the student's decision-making cycle, decision-making funnel, if you will. There's the pre-admit consideration phase, then there's the admission phase, and then there is the orientation phase, and there's a bit of a drop-off in terms of what marketers are doing afterwards. And so we're trying to change the conversation, especially with one of our clients at Ryerson University. We're trying to change the conversation to one of always on, and always making sure that student questions, student queries are responded to, that we're preempting some of the questions that we're going to get, and recognizing that after orientation, the first 6 months in the student's life cycle are very crucial for their retention. How they feel, whether or not they're getting along well with their peers in their classes, whether or not they can get to classes and cope with the academic rigor. These are questions and these are ideas that we want to help walk students through with the help of social. So we're trying to change the conversation from being front-loading and very heavy on getting students to the university and change that towards keeping them there.
I can relate to what you have said as well. So depending on the kind of client I've worked with, the way it works is they've taken their campaign approach for mass media and kind of applied it to social media. So part of that challenge for an ad agency is to educate them on how basically fans work, for example, on Facebook, and what their behavior is. Coming in waves every quarter doesn't really do anything besides spike and collapse, spike and collapse. So again, part of our goal is to educate them on what always-on content is, how that could make sense for them as a brand, how it could help them with ongoing strategic objectives, communication objectives, brand objectives, and then on top of that, as a value add, have a spike, have a campaign, do those things. But part of our challenge as an agency is to educate on that, and then also, once we've educated on that, make sure they execute it in a very authentic fashion. Because once again, working with an FI, it becomes very challenging, given all the restrictions on how you can speak and how you can respond. Whereas on Kudo Mobile, for example, it's a very friendly kind of brand to begin with, and conversation happens much more naturally, whereas when doing a comparison with Capital One, we tend to be the initiators of conversation, and it's very hard then to respond and such. But when you look at a fun brand like Kudo Mobile, the conversation is already happening. All we're doing is joining in, listening, watching, moderating, but it's already happening. So again, from an always-on strategy, it also becomes a challenge depending on the brand. Some brands are just more naturally social. Other brands are not. So some we have to try harder, and others are just much easier to work with.
Awesome. I'm going to have to watch this again. By the way, these are going to be recorded and released on the Powered by Search blog. They're going to be released somewhere. Alex will tell you. But I have to watch that bit again because this is really interesting for me. I have a question for you guys, just to make sure you're all still awake. Because it's important. How many of you actively track the number of visits from social media to your website? Okay. If you release, if you take a tweet and you're intending to drive traffic to your website, how many people have over 100 people come from that tweet to your piece of content? Not that many. Interesting. Okay, and my last question is, how many people aren't sold on social media for their business right now? Just 2 people? Wow, okay. That's surprising. I think you're lying. That's okay, though.
I think it does depend, though, how much of an investment do you make?
Yeah, that's true, too. I mean, how many people actually have an active social media campaign with a spend on it? Or like you're doing always on, you have hired someone to manage your social media campaigns. Yeah, okay, so that makes more sense. So Less than half of
Can we
you.
find out what their businesses are?
Do you want like
Yeah.
B2C, B2B?
Yeah.
Okay, B2B. B2B.
Okay.
And B2C.
And then specifically the two that aren't believers right now.
The two believers. Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
fine.
no, I'm curious.
You, what do you do?
I'm a psychotherapist, and one of the challenges that I've had with social media and using it is confidentiality
Mm-hmm.
with respect to my licensing profession and all that stuff. So
Okay.
I've been trying to find ways to work within that, but it's
Okay, so in the therapy niche and confidentiality, it's strange. I have a client in the rehabilitation kind of area, and so a lot of people who like Alcoholics Anonymous, that kind of stuff, where they're actually given they're told not to identify themselves in the rehab process. So it's the confidentiality thing again. But it's interesting. Maybe we can address that at some point. Okay.
And what about the B2B company?
Our company services legacy telephone systems for small to medium-sized businesses. So I don't see a social component to that at all. They don't care or want to talk to us until the phone doesn't work.
Interesting. Yeah. Actually, that was a question we were going to come up to, but why don't we talk about that now? The differences between B2B and B2C. I don't know who would be best to talk to. Does anyone?
I'll take a quick sir. I mean, the B2B space it's challenging, but there's a ton of opportunity that's there. I mean, we've done everything from built an experience that has people who, one of our clients at a B2B conference, they were a major sponsor and they were like sponsoring the after party. And so all we did was built them a simple experience where to get your ticket at RSVP for this after party, this Vegas conference with like 20,000 people at it, you had to sign in with LinkedIn. So we pulled all the LinkedIn data. We had a set matrix of titles, companies, keywords that they were interested in connecting with, and we just sent them a CSV of here's the 1,300 people that your company should be talking to. So all of a sudden their outbound sales team knew these people were coming to the event, sent out an email to them, giving them an opportunity to show up 30 minutes early for an open bar and a little bit of food, and they had 1,200 leads in there that they knew were defined by their group. So that's one use of social media from the standpoint of B2B. Looking at connecting with, I look at, business to business standpoint as well, as if you can connect with a thought leader who can influence the person that you're trying to convince, that's a great place as well. And whether that's on Twitter, just finding out like who are those thought leaders. So if your client is using Forrester or Abacus data or something like that currently, and you're not competing with them, but you're trying to get in for something else to change their phone system over, you connect with that person. If all of a sudden, you can get your company's name brought up in another conversation or another discussion because you've connected with this thought leader who's also influencing them, then that sort of approach, finding out who their thought leaders are and who they pay attention to, the articles they read, finding out how you can place your brand there. And quite often social media can get you on that journalist's radar or get you on that thought leader's radar, or you can reach out to them via social media to make that connection. So those are just two kind of B2B examples that are top of mind. Another one, actually, this has nothing to do with BNOTIONS, but I thought it was actually quite genius. So it was an engineering firm, I believe it was Denmark, could have been Germany now, but I actually heard about this from LinkedIn. And so what they did is they're fighting to hire actual engineer grads with an MBA as well. This is something that was really interesting to them, and what they knew is that people who have an MBA usually have a little bit bigger ego, or care a little bit more about who they are. So they built a simple LinkedIn app where you go to sign in with LinkedIn, and it would give you a valuation, like what's the market cap of your network. So it'd look at all of the companies that your network works for, and it'll actually deliver you back a number. So I can say mine's worth 14 billion, and they'll show me a leaderboard of any of my connections on LinkedIn, so I can be like, hey, I'm 12 billion bigger than you, and it created this sort of like competition between all these MBA grads. So they were all going and signing in. Now all of a sudden this company had thousands of contact information because part of the LinkedIn app is you gave them your email address. So now they're emailing job opportunities to anyone who had an MBA and an engineering degree as well. So that is kind of, I look at that as like a B2B play as well, because if you're a recruiter or something like that, you could do that exact same experience. Now you're walking into all these companies with email addresses of grads. And so that's really, it's finding that intersection of, your brand and, your markets, like what's that overlap, and where can you find opportunity to add value?
I think a recent example for me would be me sitting here and being at this event brought to you by Powered by Search and all of its partners. So what I've discovered is that with thought leadership, as you've mentioned, it captures my attention. So I've actually had the opportunity of speaking with Dev. I've had the opportunity of speaking with his team, attending meetups, reading some papers online. All these things have had an impact on me. As a result, I've actually invited Dev to come to Taxi. We've talked to a number of account managers over there. I've informed them about what Dev and his company can do. And from there could be business that comes from that. So again, using social, then using events, I mean, all of it comes hand in hand. So I think this is a perfect example of it working.
We have a ton of luck going B to small b. So as I mentioned, a lot of our focus is around mortgage brokers or real estate agents, or if someone is connected through, either they're managing the social account directly or someone close to them is, I think it's an awesome way to connect with people and build relationships. Where I've had more struggle is if we're trying to find someone in control of advertising at BMO, and I want to, sometimes I'll just give it a whirl. I'll reach out to the person through BMO and ask them to connect, and I sometimes often don't even get a response back. So big corporations, it's a little bit different. But in smaller corporations, the person you want may be running the Twitter account themselves, or be very close to the person who is. So,
higher education is more or less very strictly B2C. That being said, though, some of the work that I do involves B2B marketing, in that we have to amplify stories about research, things that are being done by faculty, any sort of press clippings that come out, and just making sure that those are talked about, that those are put in front of the right eyes, that the brand is placed in the right conversations, with the hope that we can attract some funding, partnership opportunities, and requests as such.
Awesome. So I've got a bunch of questions lined up. I was just wondering if you guys have anything that you really want to ask. Yes.
I really enjoyed everybody's insight. I think it's super awesome. And from my perspective, I can see how you can derive to a very scientific return on investment measurement for small businesses that has a very strong online conversion. But if we're referring to a big brand, let's say Coca-Cola, for instance, how do you really, I would say, link your success on social, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, to your bottom line, which would be market share growth, where a lot of the purchases are happening offline.
Okay, so the question was, how do you, it's easier to associate social media as a channel, the results from that channel, to small business as opposed to enterprise. Right. And how do you do it for enterprise? So I think since we brought up Coca-Cola, did you want to?
You're looking at me, aren't you?
Yeah.
This is a burning question, and one that is talked about all the time. In fact, today I saw a little meme, a little cartoon, and there were all these positions lining up at a boardroom meeting, and the only person that was not sitting at the boardroom table was ROI. So he missed the meeting time and time again. So it's a very challenging question. I don't have a specific answer for you on how you can accomplish that, and what the formula is, or the winning formula is. I can reference, I think everyone over here has probably read Once Upon a Time Syncap's paper of the value of a Facebook fan. So in our experience, in our briefs, in my experience, in the briefs I've managed, we haven't been asked ever to tie our social brand experiences down into a sale conversion, which then contributes to the bottom line. But I have, and I do work with Kudo Mobile on actually managing a very active online community, which does directly link to their bottom line, which is to, once again, focus community efforts on answering their own questions so that we remove money and operational dollars from the call centers. So a very smart use of social, but not in a very, let's say, brand-focused, brand-centric, anything that's going to help you with brand awareness as such. This is to help you answer those burning questions that you most likely have with your service or your product. So unfortunately, that's all I can offer you at this time. Anyone else?
I almost think of it a little bit differently. I don't know how to tie it directly to ROI. That's how I sort of started. With search, I could tell you how much I make per keyword, which I love because I love data. So social's always challenging for me because I go through these freakouts once every 3 months where I'm like, we're spending too much time and money on it. What is it doing for us? And then I have to breathe, step back, and then go through all of those indirect things. Like I said, well, wait, that's how we met the Globe reporter, and the CTV reporter called us because they saw us on the Globe, but I can't tell you how much those are worth. Whereas I feel like sometimes big companies or who have done more traditional advertising, they maybe have spent more time thinking about models of how much is an impression of earned media worth to us? How do we think about brand awareness and how do we quantify? Like the thought of me spending millions on a commercial is terrifying. I wouldn't know what it could do for my business, but someone like Coca-Cola has taken those, have done campaigns like that and put up the capital behind it. So I would be interested to hear, how they think about some of that awareness.
I mean, before I joined BNOTIONS, I spent 7 years in the advertising world, and a lot of that was introducing brands to social media for the first time, be it launching Rogers' Facebook page, a number of Labatt ones, and so these were the conversations that were coming up back in 2007. And I think today it's actually really easy to do because the technology is there. So Facebook, for example, just announced about 10 months ago, like attribution delivery. So you can actually, based on Facebook data, whether it's an offline or online purchase, there are systems in place that if you work and partner with Facebook, that they can actually provide you that this person saw this ad and then did these 9 other things and 14 days later bought the product in your store or bought it online. And they might not have clicked on the ad, or maybe they clicked on it, didn't complete the purchase then, but it can provide attribution. But attribution isn't a perfect science, but it's there. I mean, a really good example is actually American Express. Is anyone familiar with the American Express Sync program? So they launched it a few years ago with a bunch of Jay-Z concerts that they put on, and essentially what you did was to get access to these concerts, you connected your Facebook account to your American Express credit card. And the promise of that is amazing. They have your purchase data, they know who you are, but they know who you are when you pull out your American Express credit card. They don't know who you are in other aspects of your life. So simply by connecting your Facebook account to it, some of the things that they've been able to do since that is they've been able to get data, and similar to the stuff I was talking about before of modeling, so they can look at on their platinum card, their gold card, who are our top 10, top 20% of users? What does their social data look like? Now we can dig in deeper out of our platinum card, maybe like our people who over-index on use of concierge or front-of-the-line tickets. What does their social data look like? So now they can actually say that to get this data, they might have spent $5 million on those concerts and that promotion, but they have all this data. So if they can increase their conversion, because when I go to the page and sign in as a prospect, they can model me and understand that this person looks most like a gold card member who over-indexes on the use of front-of-the-line access. They're not showing me 9 cards. They're not showing me a card that's wrong. They're showing me the gold card. They're identifying the one benefit that I'm most likely most interested in. That becomes the headline. All of the body copy underneath it is contextual to that. And they can even tell that I'm going to be worth it to offer me a bonus 25,000 American Express points when I sign up right away, because potentially 25,000 was the point total that got the majority of people in that look like me. We didn't respond to 15. Or we responded to 25, the exact same level that we responded to 35. So why waste that extra 10,000 points? So the way you can say is over time, this modeling of data and understanding these users, if you can increase your conversion rate by 3 or 4% when you're American Express, $5 million is paid off easily. And over time, you can start to continually improve how you go out. And I think data is the biggest way that all brands are monetizing Right now, they're social. The other standpoint is if you do have the tracking in place prior to doing a lot of work behind social, if you knew that your Coca-Cola, it took you X millions of dollars of spend to drive X percentage of reach or frequency or number of impressions or video views. If you can build up that Facebook page now to 2 million counts, and instead of having to pay for expensive 60-second spots to get the reach and frequency or the total impressions you want, you can now post it on your Facebook page and that owned media channel, and every time they watch it, Facebook shares it with their friends. If you can now do that exact same level of awareness at a $300,000 less spend, then that's $300,000 more you can spend on paid media, or you can attribute it to savings. And so savings is return on investment just as much as sales. If to get to the same level of sales, you have to spend less money, that's ROI. And so when I'm in conversations with the big brands that we work with, those are the two areas. How can we use social data? So you're launching contests. It's not about the ROI of that contest. It's about the ROI of what you do with the data the contest gave you. And then vice versa, when you're doing fan building or community building or when you're posting, it's about how are we saving money with our next campaign because we don't have to spend the same amount to reach the same audience.
Awesome. Do you want me to just go on, or? Awesome. All right, perfect. There's the problem with having 4 panelists. If you hand it over, then everyone says, me too, and you're like, okay. Oh, who has Google Analytics? Cool. Just to answer this question on a slightly different note, I think the data answer is extremely relevant and extremely interesting. There's a report in Google Analytics that's slightly different, that's more attributing to goals in analytics. So it's more of like a direct model. So if you look at the multi-channel funnels in Google Analytics, it'll give you who is the first hit. How did they come to your site in the first place, even if they didn't convert exactly? And I remember Dev was saying something bad about social media, and I got very defensive. So I went through all of our data for Powered by Search, and I showed that social media was our third largest source of first hit traffic that resulted in a conversion. So while it didn't actually convert very highly, it converted very low, at a very low rate. A lot of people would never have found Powered by Search and converted if it wasn't for our social media campaigns. So that's a very interesting report in Google Analytics, and you can ask me about it later. You can ask me about it. It's a multi-channel funnel. Is that right? Someone, yeah? Okay. We can talk about it later. So this is probably my favorite question, and I think all of you are going to have a really good answer to this one. And this is a big ego boost thing too, so it's great. What was the best social, mostly campaign or project you've ever worked on? So the thing you're most proud of, and I guess we'll start on the far right with Hamza, just because I skipped you last time.
I think this follows up the last question, and we're still at the very early stages of discussion as far as what ROI is in a university and post-secondary environment. We by no means have a definitive answer for what social engagement or how that contributes to attracting students and retaining those students, but we're starting to ask better questions, and we're avoiding making leaps of logic. We have all these sets of data that we're able to calculate and generate we use Radian 6 for most of our clients. And we look at things like share of voice, and we look at things like click-throughs, and just aggregate growth and reach. But we're starting to make stories from that data by doing a couple of things. So with Ryerson specifically, we're beginning to tag high school students before they've made a decision to come to university. And we're monitoring their conversations and looking for specific keywords that would indicate attention and interest in coming to a post-secondary environment. And then once they do make that decision to come to Ryerson or any of the other brands that we have them tagged for, then we track their progress over the course of the school year. And we watch the conversations that they have with their peers. Are they interacting with different peers? We're using a tool called Gephi to track how they're interacting within Facebook groups. So that's GEPHI. It creates really sweet visualizations of how students are interacting with each other, and we're using that to tell a story of whether or not they're more likely to retain and continue at the university. And then we're watching as those conversations evolve over the year to see if these students are getting involved in extracurricular opportunities, if they're interacting with other students, if they are creating student groups on campus, and then taking that data, and we're still in the process of doing this. We're starting to see a lot of encouraging results, and we're starting to see that the students that we have tracked, that the students students we have engaged with during the pre-admit phase, during the admit phase, and during the orientation phase and beyond that are actually staying back, and they are talking about Ryerson, they are talking about other schools in a way that is very encouraging and generating stories that other people in their networks might hear. And who knows what that might what that might turn into years down the road. I mean, if they're friends and if they have friends in their concentric circles that are in high school, that are considering higher education, down the road when it comes time to select their top 3 universities, and again, going off the earlier stat that we know for a fact that 86% of Ryerson students don't physically come to the campus before they make the decision to come to Ryerson, we know that now at the top of their mind, at the forefront of their mind, there have been enough positive stories that have generated from students that are currently at Ryerson that we're helping to encourage. And so by the end of this, I think maybe by next year, I'll have a better answer for you. And hopefully I'll be able to answer that question as to whether or not students were able to, by help of the work that we're doing through Splash Effect, come to university, stay at university. Right now, what we do know is that the work that we're doing is offsetting the costs that would be associated with traditional marketing. So banners, conference fairs, university fairs, print material, TV ads, so on and so forth. So that's what I'm most proud of, just the beginnings of an experiment.
I've chatted about a couple examples, so I'll pass it on.
Okay, I've had an opportunity to work on a number of social media campaigns and help brands actually make it to Facebook and such, but I think the most memorable or talk-worthy example I could share with you today is one that I did not create, but I've had the privilege of joining in, and I've mentioned a few times while talking to you, and that's specifically this Kudo community, this support community that I've brought up a couple times. And the reason I'm so proud of this, not that I had anything to do with it besides now that I work with it, is because it actually is a smart investment. Consider our Gen Y audience who we're trying to target with our Kudo Mobile, and just their dependency on using the internet to find their own answers and basically their behaviors. And with those behaviors, we've identified that allowing them to help themselves when they need it most at any given time of the day is the best way to help them and in turn help us. And so on this very engaged community, what happens, it's built on a social platform called Get Satisfaction. And what it is an online community that's on 365 where people can go and ask questions, get answers, share ideas, share feedback. And I mean, that sounds like quite a lot, but it actually works very well. In fact, 97% of the questions that are asked online on that community are answered within 6 minutes and all by peer-to-peer. To take it a step further, we've added gamification to it. So it's a little more fun than just answer, like a basic forum. So with gamification comes rewards, which strokes ego, and again, it encourages more interaction. To take that a step further, we identified who the super users were, people who really stayed back, and we've ended up calling them the mobile masters. And this very, very select group of people actually attribute to answering a majority of the questions that are being asked by a vast audience, not only members, but people just coming to the site. And then as a result, they in turn are given access to Kudo programs and rewards that make them feel even more special and continue to be an active member of the community, which then again builds brand advocacy and so many other great things. But what does this all mean in the end, besides being a great social story, is that it actually has real measurable return on investment in savings, which then ties right back to operational dollars, which then can be used in other areas of the business to continue to be a very challenging telco in the Canadian landscape.
Yeah, I think I mentioned a few before. I mean, for us, social data has enabled us to drive a lot of our clients' cost per installs of their mobile applications down significantly. But an interesting one, just because not everything needs to be a big idea, and this is actually a company that BNOTIONS were an investor in, and I'm an advisor for, and it's a product called Idea Melt, and they were going to a conference, and it was a big expenditure for them and one of their first times, and they're like, it's a B2B example, like, I'm going to be up on stage speaking on a panel, at the end of it I want to give people a reason to drop by our booth, what can be a driver, and so, after a few hours in a boardroom, we simply came up with this idea that for Idea Melt to have their logo carved in ice, and that was going to be behind their booth, and they're going to give away an iPad, and people just had to predict at what minute it was going to be fully melted. And so for the 2 days of this conference, their logo idea melt was actually melting over time, and people were going, and all they had to do was just tweet at their brand on Twitter, or on their Twitter handle, when they thought it was going to happen. And so they got a lot of Twitter followers. They got a lot of awareness. People were taking pictures of it, sharing it. They kind of hijacked a little bit of the trade show floor. He wasn't supposed to push his brand when he was up on, or his booth when he was up on stage talking about it. But 2 big deals and a VC that they're in serious talks with right now came out of that. And so that's why, like, social, it's, you know, not everything needs to be a multi-million-dollar investment in data science or building, you know, pages or, you know, communities or whatnot. It can just be smart, more tactical executions that just help push your brand a little bit forward at a time.
Awesome. I just, another show of hands and, or wait. Okay. So, one more question or no? Sorry, guys. Okay, cool. So I had a really interesting question, and I wanted to do that, but apparently we're not going to be able to. So we're still going to be available to chat a little bit after the conference. Follow us out to the bar for a beer. 8 times. Aha. And yeah, I think that's it for the conference. Can everyone just give a round of applause for the panelists?